At my parents' anniversary, I was walking back from a call. When I heard my brother tell his wife and my parents, Daniel's got all that money and nothing to show for it. No wife, no kids, just an empty house. I went home, cut off every bill I'd been covering for him, and found hotel receipts with a woman who wasn't his wife. Now he's divorced, lost custody, and sleeping at a bus station. Hey Reddit, I don't usually post on here. I just scroll, read drama, and mind my business. But things at home went so sideways, I honestly didn't know where else to drop this. My name's Daniel, 35 male, and if there's one thing I've learned the hard way, it's that family will drain you faster than strangers ever could, especially when there's a favorite. In my family, that title's been glued to my younger brother Lucas, 32 male, since the day he was born. I'm 3 years older, but you wouldn't know it by how I've been treated. To my parents, I'm the serious, boring one. Lucas is the golden boy who can do no wrong. Growing up, I was the type of kid who liked quiet. I'd be in my room reading or working on some little side project while other kids were out running around. Not because I didn't like fun, I just liked my space. Privacy mattered to me. Lucas was the opposite. He couldn't go 5 minutes without being the center of attention. Loud, flashy, always cracking jokes, and somehow always in my room messing with my stuff. He had zero concept of knocking. If my door was closed, he saw it as an invitation to barge in. I'd be in the middle of homework, headphones on, and suddenly he'd be behind me, picking up my things, going through my desk drawers like it was his personal treasure hunt. Once I caught him trying on my jacket in the mirror. Not borrowing, just wearing it like it was already his. I told him to take it off, and he smirked and said, "Chill, you're so uptight." My parents? They laughed when I complained. "He's your brother, Daniel. Don't be so dramatic." That's how it always was. Anything I called out was dramatic. Anything he did was harmless fun. He wasn't just disrespectful in private either. He had a way of making digs at me in front of people, turning them into little jokes so no one else saw how nasty they actually were. He'd make comments about how I never leave the house, or how I was married to my job. And my parents would join in, like it was family comedy night. The favoritism was baked into everything. First example, birthdays. My 10th birthday, I got a store-bought cake and a "you're growing up fast" from Dad. We didn't have much, so I didn't expect a mountain of gifts, but the whole thing was over in 20 minutes. Lucas's 10th birthday, whole backyard decked out, catered food from a local place, a bouncy castle, and a brand new gaming console. I remember sitting at the table watching him tear into his presents, my parents snapping pictures like he was some celebrity. Dad turned to me and said, "You're the older one. You understand." Like that was supposed to make it fair. Second example, the rent situation. When I turned 19, Dad told me it was time to pay responsibility rent if I wanted to keep living at home. It wasn't much, but it was enough to take a big chunk out of my warehouse paycheck. I didn't argue. I figured that's just part of becoming an adult. Fast forward a few years, Lucas moves back home at 23, just for a little while after quitting another job. He pays nothing. Zero. Mom actually said, "We don't want to stress him. He's going through a lot." Meanwhile, I was paying rent the same week I was pulling 12-hour shifts. Third example, the laptop. I saved up for months to buy one. Extra shifts, no random spending, just stacking cash. I needed it for a certification course that could move me up at work. Lucas asked to borrow it for a presentation. A week later, it came back with a cracked screen and sticky keys. No apology, no offer to fix it. Just, stuff happens, man. I had to push my course back a month and pay for repairs myself. When I told my parents, Mom rolled her eyes and said, "You're so picky with your things. It's just a laptop." Those 3 things might sound small to someone outside the family, but when it's year after year of the same treatment, it starts to feel like you're living in a rigged game. Lucas is the kind of guy who's great at making people like him in 5 minutes. He's good looking, tall, sharp jawline, perfect hair, the whole thing. Married a gorgeous woman, Emma, who thinks he's some business genius. And that's the thing. He plays the part so well in public, but behind the scenes, he's been leaning on me financially for years. Rent, bills, emergency expenses. Always in private, always with a "don't tell Emma" tagged on at the end. I didn't just support him as an adult either. Even when we were kids, I was the one making sacrifices. I'd give up my turn at something so he could have another go. I'd cover for him when he forgot chores, or take the blame when he broke something and didn't want to deal with Dad. Back then, I thought that's what being a big brother meant. You take the hit so your younger sibling can be happy. But Lucas didn't grow out of being the kid who breaks your stuff and laughs about it. He just learned how to do it with bigger things, like my time, my money, my peace of mind. And my parents never stopped encouraging it. To them, his charm and good looks mean he deserves more slack. My discipline and independence? That just makes me capable enough to be used. Here's the thing. I've done well for myself. I'm not rich, but I've worked my way into a solid career. I own my house, have a nice car, and I sleep fine at night knowing I've built it all without shortcuts. But in my family's eyes, that just means I'm the one who can afford to give more. It's never about whether I want to. It's about the fact that Lucas shouldn't have to struggle because he's already under enough stress. And the worst part? No matter how much I give, it doesn't earn me respect. He still talks to me like I'm the one falling short, still pushes into my space like my boundaries are optional, still walks around like the golden boy who's got it all figured out, while I'm just the dependable older brother who's there to cover the gaps. That's the background, that's the pattern. And up until recently, I played along. I let him cross lines, I paid when he asked, and I pretended it didn't bother me. But there's only so many years you can carry someone before you start wondering why you're still holding them up. To the outside world, Lucas is the kind of guy people want to be friends with. The type you'd see walking into a restaurant with his wife, Emma, and assume they were living the good life. Nice car, sharp clothes, the whole young, successful couple vibe. He's tall, keeps himself in shape, knows how to talk to people without making them feel awkward. Emma is stunning, one of those women who turns heads without even trying. Together, they look like an ad for whatever life goal you think you should be chasing. What no one knows is how much of that image is on my dime. Lucas has always been obsessed with how people see him. He can't stand the thought of looking like he's struggling, especially in front of Emma. I honestly think he believes her respect for him is tied to his ability to show her they're doing well. The problem is, he doesn't have the income or discipline to back that up. He jumps from one job to another, spends like his paycheck will magically grow next month, and when the bills come due, I get a call. And it's always private. Never in front of Emma. He'll wait until she's out, or he'll text me, call me later, with a time window. When I answer, it's the same story every time. Rent's late. The car needs repairs. Utilities are overdue. Something for the kids came up. It's never presented as his fault. He'll make it sound like life just threw him bad luck again, and he's this poor guy just trying to hold it all together for his family. The first time I helped him after he got married, I figured it was a one-time thing. They'd just had their first kid. Things were tight, and I thought, okay, I can float him this once so they don't have to stress. I covered his rent and car payment that month. He swore up and down he'd pay me back. Of course, that never happened. Then it became twice. Then 3 times. Then so regular that I just started budgeting for him. There were months where I paid more toward his life than my own. Here's how it usually went. Rent. He'd send me a screenshot of the amount and say, "Can you cover it this month? I'll sort it out next time." There was never a next time. I'd wire it straight to his landlord so it wouldn't be awkward for him. Utilities. He'd claim they were about to shut off the power, and he just needed a quick boost to keep things running. Credit card bills. Yeah, I know. Dumb move. At one point, I added him to one of my credit cards for emergencies. He treated that card like it printed Monopoly money. Sneakers, dinners out, a new phone, all went on the card. I kept paying it off so Emma wouldn't see late fees or collection letters. Car repairs. He'd call and say, "Bro, I can't have Emma driving the kids in something unsafe." I'd send money straight to the mechanic so she'd think Lucas had it covered. It got to the point where I was basically running a silent second household without telling anyone. The worst part was how my parents acted about it. They knew I was helping him. Not the full amount, but enough to understand that Lucas wasn't standing on his own. Instead of telling him to grow up, they acted like I was fulfilling my duty as the older brother. Dad would say things like, "That's what family's for." And Mom would go on about how I should be proud of keeping the family strong. Proud? I was bailing water from a ship that Lucas was actively drilling holes into. Lucas never thanked me in a way that mattered. Oh, he'd say thanks in the moment, but it was more like checking a box than actual gratitude. He'd still make little digs about how I was a single with nothing else to spend my money on. I guess in his head, my independence meant I owed it to him to fund his perfect life. Emma had no clue. She genuinely thought Lucas was the one providing all of it. She'd post pictures online about how hard he works for his family, how he's such a provider. People would comment about what a great husband and dad he is. And I'd just sit there, scrolling, thinking about the wire transfer I sent 2 days earlier to keep their lights on. It wasn't just about money either. Lucas treated my time like it was free. If he needed help moving furniture, I was there. Watching the kids so he and Emma could have a night out? Sure, why not? Fixing something at his place because he didn't want to pay a handyman? Of course, it was constant. He'd text me, "Can you swing by for a sec?" and it would turn into a 4-hour job. My parents kept feeding this dynamic. If I complained, Mom would say, "Lucas has a family, Daniel. You're just one person. It's different for you." Dad would chime in with, "You know your brother's not as practical as you. Be the bigger man." They acted like it was my role in life to absorb every bad decision Lucas made. There was one particular month that really showed me how bad it had gotten. Lucas had spent a chunk of his paycheck on a weekend getaway for him and Emma. Fancy hotel, nice dinners, the works. Meanwhile, he was texting me that same week asking for help with the mortgage payment. I told him straight up, "Why would you take a trip if you couldn't cover your bills?" His response? "I can't let Emma think I can't provide. She deserves the best." Translation: I was the safety net that allowed him to keep lying. It's not like I was some selfless saint either. I've got my own life, my own bills, and I work hard for what I have. But every time I tried to pull back, he'd guilt-trip me with lines about the kids, or Mom would call and talk about how worried she was for Lucas. So I'd cave. Again. I wish I could say I was completely blind to how much it was costing me, but I knew. I knew I was enabling him. I knew it wasn't sustainable. But there's something about family that makes you think you can't just stop without being labeled the bad guy. The thing is, Lucas had everyone fooled but me. To friends, to extended family, even to Emma. He was the man. He'd show up to events looking sharp, laughing loud, telling stories about work and life. People ate it up. Meanwhile, I was behind the curtain holding up the set pieces so they wouldn't fall over. Looking back now, the favoritism from our parents is what allowed him to get this comfortable. When we were kids, it was about toys, chores, and who got the last slice of cake. Now, it was about who got to live stress-free and who got to pay for it. Dad would praise Lucas for keeping his family together, while barely acknowledging that I was the one actually keeping them afloat. I'd get reminders of how invisible my efforts were all the time. Like when Emma posted a picture of their new living room furniture with the caption, "So proud of Lucas for making our home beautiful." I recognized the couch instantly, because I'd put it on my credit card. That was the rhythm of things. Lucas would keep up the image, I'd quietly fix the gaps, and no one would be the wiser. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was just helping, until he got on his feet. Years went by. The cracks were there if anyone looked closely enough, but no one did. And I'll be honest, I didn't expect the change to come the way it did. I always figured I'd have to make some big announcement or blow up to finally cut him off. Turns out all it took was hearing what he really thought of me when he didn't think I was listening. The thing about being the dependable brother is people get comfortable talking about you like you're not even there. They forget you have ears, or maybe they just assume you're too mature to care. Either way, they get sloppy. A few months back, my parents threw a big anniversary dinner. They rented out the back room of an Italian place in town. Big family turnout. Uncles, aunts, cousins, even a couple of my parents' old friends from their neighborhood days. It was one of those events where you can't move 2 feet without someone grabbing your arm and saying, "You've gotten older." Like that's breaking news. Lucas and Emma showed up late, of course. He strolled in like a politician working a crowd, shaking hands, kissing cheeks, telling everyone they looked great. Emma had that same effortless charm she always does. I could see a couple of the younger cousins staring at her like she was a celebrity. Dinner went as expected. Loud, messy, lots of overlapping conversations. I sat next to Uncle Ray, who spent most of the night talking about his fishing trips, which was fine by me. I'm not a spotlight guy. I just wanted to eat, nod at the right moments, and get through the night without having to explain why I'm still single. About halfway through dessert, I got up to take a call. Nothing important, just a buddy confirming our plans for the weekend. I stepped outside into the hallway by the restrooms. When I was done, I took the long way back to the table so I wouldn't have to pass by the bar, where a bunch of my dad's friends were smoking. That's when I heard it. The hallway led past this little alcove near the coat rack. Lucas was standing there with Emma and my parents. They hadn't seen me. I slowed down without even thinking about it. Mom was saying something about how she was so proud of Lucas for providing for his family. Emma smiled and said she was lucky to have a husband who never lets them go without. Then Lucas laughed, that smug, too loud laugh I've known my whole life, and said, "Yeah, Daniel could take notes. All that money and nothing to show for it. No wife, no kids, just him in that big empty house." Emma chuckled, and my dad added, "We've been telling him for years, but he's too stubborn. Doesn't know what he's missing." Lucas kept going. "He acts like he's better because he's independent, but I wouldn't trade my life for his in a million years. Guy's got no one. Probably never will. Just works, eats, and sleeps." Mom laughed. "Well, at least he's good for something. You know, helping family." They all laughed at that one. I can't even explain what that felt like. Not because I was shocked. I've heard variations of this before, just never this naked. And never after I'd been paying for the rent Lucas claims he covers, or the credit card charges he racks up so Emma can keep thinking they're fine. It wasn't just the disrespect. It was the fact they were bonding over it. Like my worth in this family boiled down to being the faceless ATM behind Lucas's provider act. I didn't step out and confront them. I didn't make a scene. That's not me. I just turned around, walked out of the restaurant, and drove home. Didn't say goodbye, didn't pay my share of the bill, didn't answer the 2 texts from mom asking where I went. By the time I got home, I was done. I'd let it slide for years. The digs, the favoritism, the one-way street of help. I told myself it was just family dynamics, but hearing them joke about it like I was some idiot who didn't even notice, that was different. That was final. I sat down at my desk and started pulling up every account I'd ever tied to Lucas. Rent payments? Canceled. Utility auto payments? Gone. The shared credit card? Disabled immediately. I even called the bank's fraud line just to make sure nothing pending could sneak through before it closed. The next morning, I emailed his landlord, short and to the point, effective immediately, I will no longer be responsible for rent payments for Unit Nottert 3. Please address all future matters directly with Lucas. That was it. No warning, no, I'll give you a month. They wanted to talk about me like I was a joke? Fine. Let them figure out what life looks like without me covering the gaps. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control of something with them. Not happy, exactly, just clear. It took about a week for the fallout to hit. After I overheard Lucas, there was no going back. I'd already pulled the plug on every payment I'd been covering for him. Rent, utilities, the card, all gone. It felt good, but not in the movie scene kind of way where you throw your head back and laugh. It was more like taking a deep breath after holding it for too long. The shared credit card was the one I wanted gone the fastest. It had started as a dumb idea years ago when Lucas convinced me it would help in emergencies if he was an authorized user. Back then, I thought I was doing him a solid. In reality, I'd just given him a personal shopping account with my name on it. He'd run it up, I'd pay it off, and Emma never saw a single late fee. A couple days after the restaurant, while shutting down the card, I called the bank. Told them to freeze it immediately and remove Lucas from the account. The rep on the phone went through recent transactions to confirm which ones I still needed to pay. That's when I noticed a couple of charges that didn't make sense. 2 different hotel receipts from the same week, both high-end places, both local. I'm talking a 20-minute drive from Lucas's house. My first thought was maybe it was a business thing, but Lucas doesn't travel for work, and if it was some special getaway for him and Emma, I'd have heard about it from her at the next family gathering. She loves posting that kind of thing. I asked the rep to email me the detailed statements. 10 minutes later, I had PDFs sitting in my inbox. One click, and there it was. Each receipt had the guest name listed. Neither said Lucas or Emma. It was Lucas's card number, but the name in the guest line was a woman I'd never heard of. I sat there for a good minute, staring at the screen. Not shocked, not even angry yet. Just processing. This wasn't a hotel bar tab or a lunch receipt. These were overnight stays. Same woman's name, 2 different dates, same pattern, room service charges, late checkout. If I'd had any doubt, it vanished when I noticed one was billed on the same day Emma had posted photos from a girls' day trip. She'd been out of town. Lucas hadn't been with her. Now I knew exactly where he'd been. Part of me wanted to call him right then and let it rip. But I didn't. That would have given him room to spin it, to make excuses, to try and flip it back on me. I've seen him do it 100 times with my parents. Turn the heat around until the other person is the one apologizing. Instead, I started thinking about Emma. She'd been in the dark for years, not just about the cheating, but about the fact I'd been covering Lucas's financial mess. She thought she was married to a man who provided, who kept their life stable. Meanwhile, half the stability was coming from me, and now I knew he'd been running around with someone else while I was keeping his lights on. I pulled up my email and forwarded the statements to myself again, but this time, I also downloaded them to a flash drive I keep for important files. I wasn't going to text or email them to Emma. This wasn't the kind of thing you drop through a screen. It needed to be face-to-face. The next morning after that, I went through my own records. Old transfers, rent payments, utility bills. I printed out the ones tied to Lucas. Not everything, just enough to make the point clear. When I was done, I had a neat little pile of paper. Proof of the money, proof of the hotels, proof of the pattern. I didn't rush it. I waited until I knew Emma would be home without Lucas. Midweek, when he'd usually be at work. I called her, told her I needed to talk about something important. She sounded curious, not suspicious. When I got to her place, she offered me coffee. I said no. I sat at the kitchen table, set the papers down, and told her exactly what they were. First, the financial support, how I'd been paying their rent, covering the credit card, bailing him out for years. Then the hotel receipts. At first, she just stared at the papers. Then she read the name on the receipts. That's when her face changed. She knew who it was. I didn't ask, and she didn't say. But I could tell by the way her jaw clenched that this wasn't some random stranger to her. I didn't tell her what to do. I just told her she deserved to know the truth. She thanked me quietly and said she needed some time. I left without trying to comfort her. This wasn't about me swooping in to be the hero. It was about pulling the curtain back and letting her see what was actually going on. 2 weeks later, word got around the family. Emma had filed for divorce and was going for full custody of the kids. My parents called me, furious. They blamed me for destroying Lucas's marriage. I reminded them I wasn't the one in hotel rooms with another woman. Lucas didn't call me directly. He sent one text. "You've ruined my life." I didn't reply. I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped protecting him from the fallout he'd been building for years. When word got out that Emma had filed for divorce, I could feel the temperature shift. My phone went from quiet to buzzing like a fire alarm. First, it was my mom, Linda, calling nonstop. Then my dad, Mark. Then a couple of my aunts who never call me unless someone's in the hospital or they want to ride somewhere. All of them had the same tone, like I'd just committed a crime against the family. "Daniel, how could you?" Mom's voice cracked like she was auditioning for a soap. No, I can't use that word. Let's say she sounded like she was reading from a bad script. "You know how hard marriage is. You don't air someone's dirty laundry like that." "I didn't air anything," I said. "I handed the laundry basket to the person it belonged to." She gasped like I'd just sworn at her. "You destroyed their family." "Lucas destroyed his family," I said flatly. "I just stopped covering for him." Then Dad jumped in on a separate call, hitting me with his favorite line. "We raised you to take care of family, even when they make mistakes." Dad, a mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. Repeatedly sleeping with another woman while your wife's out of town? That's a choice. He went silent for a second, then went straight to guilt. "You're going to let your own niece and nephew grow up in a broken home? They'll grow up in a home without lies," I said. "That's better than the alternative." It didn't matter what I said. In their eyes, I'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Lucas, of course, didn't have the guts to call me at first. He sent me one of those fake calm texts that's actually just simmering rage. "You've ruined my life. Hope you're happy." I didn't reply. If I had, it would have been something like, "No, Lucas, you ruined your own life. I just stopped paying for it." But honestly, even that would have been wasted breath. Emma moved quick. She wasn't messing around. Full custody filing, financial statements, the works. And she had the kind of lawyer who doesn't just aim to win. They aim to make the other side bleed money in the process. Lucas's act crumbled fast without me propping it up. The rent payment he swore he always handled suddenly didn't get made. The utilities? Cut off notices within weeks. Emma found out just how deep the lies went. Not just the cheating, but the years of fake stability. From what I heard, the first custody hearing didn't go well for him. Emma's lawyer came in with a binder the size of a dictionary, full of financial records. Some of it was stuff I'd given her, proof that I'd been the one covering bills while Lucas spent his money on himself. Judges don't like hearing that a dad's been lying to his wife and mooching off someone else while pretending to be a provider. Lucas tried to spin it, told the court he'd had family assistance but that it was temporary. The receipts told a different story. Years of transfers from me, payments directly to his landlord, my name on utility accounts for a house I didn't live in. Emma got temporary full custody right there. Lucas got supervised visitation until he could prove financial stability, which was laughable because his job situation was already on the edge. The week after that hearing, I started getting messages from cousins saying my parents were going around telling everyone I'd sided with Emma and betrayed blood. Extended family that used to be friendly suddenly got cold. I'd walk into a room at a gathering and conversations would stall. People I'd known my whole life wouldn't look me in the eye. Did it sting? Yeah, but it didn't change anything. I wasn't going to set myself on fire to keep Lucas warm. Lucas finally called me about a month after everything blew up. It wasn't to apologize. It wasn't to own up. It was to ask for money. "Just until I get back on my feet, man," he said, like we were talking about borrowing jumper cables. I laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in weeks. "You think I'm sending you money after everything? This isn't about us," he snapped. "This is about my kids." "No," I said. "This is about you. Your kids are fine. Emma's taking care of them. You're the one who needs the money and I'm not your wallet anymore." "You're cold, Daniel," he said, his voice shaking. "You've changed." "Yeah," I said. I stopped being stupid. That was the last real conversation we had. Without my money, Lucas's life started shrinking. He downgraded from their rental house to a one-bedroom apartment in a sketchy part of town. Then he couldn't keep up with that and moved into a rented room in someone else's place. Emma kept the car in the divorce, so he was back to using public transit or bumming rides off friends. The job he had, some sales position he'd bragged about for months, didn't last. Apparently, showing up late and having your personal issues spill into work isn't great for keeping clients happy. He bounced to a couple of temp gigs, none of which stuck. Meanwhile, my parents doubled down on their opinion that I was cruel. Every phone call with them turned into an argument. They'd accuse me of abandoning Lucas, and I'd remind them that I'd been financially carrying him for years, while they looked the other way. One night, my mom actually said, "If you loved your brother, you'd help him even now." I told her, "If you'd raised him to stand on his own, we wouldn't be having this conversation." She hung up on me. The irony? A few of the relatives who'd been avoiding me started reaching out quietly, saying they understood why I cut him off. Turns out Lucas had borrowed from more than just me over the years. The difference was, I'd been stupid enough to make it easy for him. By the end of the year, Lucas was a shell of the guy who used to stroll into family events like he owned the place. His clothes weren't as sharp. He'd lost weight in a way that wasn't healthy. The confidence was gone, replaced by this jittery energy like he was always waiting for the next piece of bad news. And here's the thing. I didn't take pleasure in seeing him like that. I didn't need him to be miserable for me to feel justified, but I also didn't feel sorry for him. Everything he lost was something he'd been pretending to have in the first place. The family kept trying to pull me back in. Just help him with rent for a few months. It's Christmas, Daniel. Don't be heartless. Think of the kids. They never once said, Lucas needs to apologize or Lucas needs to change. It was always about me stepping up again so he wouldn't have to. I held the line, and every time I said no, it got a little easier. By spring, I heard through the grapevine that Lucas was months behind on rent for the room he was in. He'd burned bridges with the few friends who'd tried to help. He was couch surfing, but even that was wearing thin. My parents were still in denial, telling everyone he was between jobs and sorting things out. I knew better. Lucas wasn't sorting anything out. He was circling the drain. And honestly, that was on him. By summer, Lucas's situation had gone from bad to worse. The room he was renting? Gone. The landlord had given him a 2-week grace period after months of late rent. But when the money never came, he was out. No storage unit, no moving truck, just a couple of trash bags and a duffel. Emma had the kids full-time now. The custody decision was final. She had sole custody, and Lucas's visitation was supervised once a month at a community center. She'd gotten the car in the divorce too, so he was on foot. Most of the family didn't know the details, just that things were still being worked out. The truth was, there was nothing to work out. He was broke. The sales job was long gone. The temp work dried up. A buddy of his got him a spot on a construction crew for day labor, but he lasted a week before they stopped calling him back. Showed up late twice, took too many breaks, and mouthed off to a supervisor. He started crashing on friends' couches, but that didn't last. One guy kicked him out after finding out Lucas had been borrowing clothes and not returning them. Another told him flat out he couldn't deal with the drama that followed Lucas everywhere now, which was code for the constant calls from my parents begging them to keep him. That's when my parents went into overdrive. Calls, texts, even showing up at my place once. They wanted me to take him in, just until he gets steady work, Dad said. He's your brother. I told them no every time. Not once did they say he'd pay rent or even help out. It was always framed as me helping family, which was their polite way of saying, let him live off you again. They tried the guilt route. He's sleeping in his car. That was impossible. Emma had gotten the car in the divorce months ago. Then it was, he's staying outside. That one turned out to be true. He'd been hanging around a park near the bus station at night because there were a couple of security lights and less trouble there than other spots. By August, word got around to the extended family. Some offered him food or a little cash. Others stayed away. The same aunts and uncles who used to brag about Lucas at gatherings now avoided talking about him at all. The golden boy image was gone, and no one wanted to be too close to the wreckage. One of my cousins ran into him downtown and said he barely recognized him. Beard grown out, clothes wrinkled, carrying a backpack that looked like it had been through a war. He wasn't the loud, polished Lucas anymore. He kept his head down and mumbled when people spoke to him. Even Emma's friends had started talking. At first, she'd kept quiet about the cheating, but after Lucas made a couple of public scenes, showing up uninvited at the kids' school events, trying to talk to her in parking lots. She stopped protecting him. She told anyone who asked exactly why they'd divorced and how long it had been going on. Whatever social credibility he had left evaporated. The last time my parents brought him up to me, they said, "He's not the same person anymore." I didn't answer. It wasn't worth pointing out that he was the same person, just without the money, house, and lies holding the act together. By September, he was sleeping at the bus station most nights. The security guards knew him by name. Sometimes he'd get a spot at the shelter, but those beds filled up fast. He started asking random relatives for small amounts of cash, $5 here, 10 there. Most of them stopped answering his calls. That's where he stayed. Not in some dramatic, trying to rebuild phase, just existing in a way no one could pretend was temporary anymore.